Hi, I'm Shannon.
And I'm Robin, and this is Haunted Hearts, where two best friends talk about ghost romance. This week, we are talking about The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston.
The audiobook, she says Poston.
Okay, then, unless corrected by the author, which has happened to me in another book podcast I did,
Yeah.
I'm going
We'll
with
go
the
with
audiobook.
Poston.
For those Yeah. For those of you that do not know, which will be like basically all of you, I did another book podcast with another very good friend of mine called the Vorkosa Cast, where we read the entirety of the Vorkosigan saga by Lois McMaster Bujold. And she came in our comments and corrected our
We
pronunciation.
love a nitpicky queen.
Right? One of the
I know.
highlights of
This is
my
the thing.
book career,
I
to
would
be
be
honest.
elated if the Lynn Curlins and the Ashley Postons of the world knew that I existed and were like, actually, you're wrong.
Right. Yep. You know what?
Bring it
come
on.
in and correct me.
Can we start a
Totally
discourse
fine.
about this?
Exactly.
How wrong I am. Would love that.
Yes,
Yes.
right? Like, yes, just keep telling me how wrong I am.
Let's
So
do
I can
that,
engage with
please.
you about how much I like your books. Yep. So yeah, this week is it's a much more modern book than what we read last week. Or whatever week that was. I think we've talked about it before, but we do intend to sort of flip-flop between the older books and some more recently published ones. This was one of my suggestions and truly one of my favorites. I actually read it earlier this year and intended to just like skim it to refresh myself and ended up reading the entire book.
This came out in 2022, and I think I had, because my internet romance friends know that I love a ghost romance, they were immediately like, Shannon, read this book. And I somehow got my memos crossed that it was the romance community that had recommended it to me, because I got relatively far into the book and panicked that it was going to be like a Nicholas Sparks, like that it was not going to be a happily ever after, that it was going to be some like really sad, really like not a happily ever after. And so I noped out pretty far actually in. And then Robin read it and she was like, what are you talking about? This is very much a romance. Very much. So I started again this.
Like one of the kind of romances
It
that like
is
gives me
actually, now that I've
butterflies
read it,
and like
it is actually a bit of a love letter to romance. Actually, no, it is very much a love letter to
yes,
yeah.
it is a love letter
How I
to
missed
romance.
that as far as
mean,
I got, I am not sure, but I will say
you too
I
were
will
just
say this.
skimming the book at the time.
I don't know that this book needs trigger warnings necessarily. However, if you are dealing with grief in any way, you should know that going into this book, because it is like grief,
Right.
is romance and grief are the themes of this book.
I don't think it's personally, this is one of the like, I don't feel like it's bogged down in grief. It doesn't feel like the book is about sad deeply. It's not sad. The book is not
Right.
it's not steeped in grief, right? But what it is really sort of examining
Right.
how
So we'll
people
go
grieve.
just so the main character, whose name I've completely forgotten. I knew that.
Florence! Don't tell
Listen,
Evie. That is our
listen,
niece's first name.
this is the ADHD is strong inside me, and I read this day before yesterday, and therefore I have forgotten major plot points already. Why we're having a
It's gone
fucking
now!
podcast about books if I haven't read it 15 minutes before? I don't know, but it's gonna make for
Right.
some real chaos, friend.
That's why I take notes as I read to keep us. I take notes
Anyway,
to keep us
my
on
point
track.
was saying that Florence is the daughter of mortician. He grew up in a funeral home.
Yes.
So so this book is steeped in death and death practices and ghosts. And so but it deals with those things in a very um I don't it's not lighthearted because but like
I was
yeah,
gonna say
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
uplifting.
Um yeah. So her Florence's father dies, and she has to go home to deal with her father's death. And that includes going back to her small town, um where she has two siblings and her mom and a funeral home, and she's the only one in the family that sees ghosts besides her father. So right,
And
she
she
started
has since
seeing
she was
them
a kid.
as a kid. She always has. So she it's an it is very much about death and grief practices, but the in the coolest way. Yeah.
Reading this book through the second time, I was like, wow, did someone write this book for me? It's set in a southern town. So a lot of this feels very familiar in terms of like small southern towns. Um, it's set not too far from where my parents actually live. So it's set in the foothills of Appalachia. They're in North Carolina, I think, but my parents are in Georgia,
Yeah,
but they
South
meet
Carolina,
not
one of the
very far from
Carolinas.
where my
It
parents.
Yeah.
I thought it was North Carolina because they kept
I
talking
thought it
about
was South,
Asheville.
but those are not all very far from each other.
It's true. I think the town does not exist, so we can't look on a map, but it is somewhere in the foothills of Appalachia in a small town. She's coming from New York. She's coming back to a town that holds a lot of trauma for her. And I think that speaks to a lot of us who grew up in places where we didn't feel entirely normal in the communities that we were in, whether that's seeing ghosts or, being a weird smart sci-fi loving kid or being a super artistic kid or whatever it is. It just really spoke to that sort of trepidation about going back to a place that you never felt
Yeah.
entirely comfortable with. um I also loved the idea of the funeral home, like in my mind. So Shannon and I live not far from a Victorian era funeral home, and that is what this place looks like in my mind. It is Willie Watkins.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Um, yeah. It
um,
I think it was it was a great book for me because of um the discussions about death and grief. Well, yeah, I thought it was all handled so well. The thing that threw me off, here's what threw me off when I stopped reading it before. I you you
okay,
meet the book starts, she's a writer. She's a ghost writer, which is just
I know.
she's a
I
ghost
love that.
She's a
I
ghostwriter
love
for,
that
like,
detail.
a queen of romance, like the Nora Roberts, the Jude Devereaux, the name, like, that the romance writer that has a bestseller on the list every single year. She is a ghostwriter for the and has been for about 5 years or something like that. And
Yep.
her latest book is due, and she has to go meet a new editor. She walks into the office, and the new editor is a very good looking, very tall man. And I was like, oh, okay, all
Well,
signs
yes.
point to this being the romance, like the love interest. And then he she go her dad dies, she goes home, and he shows up as a ghost, and I'm like, whoa, 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 is he now like a like, I just didn't it was so surprising that he, quote, "dies," that, like, I didn't believe that he was the main I didn't believe I thought, "Is this gonna be, like, a weird are we gonna"
Right.
I had the signs were there, the signs were there. He was a very tall, very good looking, they flirted in his office, but then she threw a cactus at him, and, like, The signs were there that this was the love interest, and then for him to show up dead, I do not see how this reconciles. I do not understand. So obviously this is going to be some sort of like weird they're going to introduce a third character and it's going to be like a weird ghost love triangle or
Right. Or he's gonna, like, help her
uh,
find love with someone else
and so
right.
I
Yeah,
just
no.
was like,
Yeah, yeah,
no,
no.
no, I'm not prepared. I
Um,
need a romance. That's what I sign up for and I'm out. Um That is,
right.
I think also I noped out when she visited a florist and asked for 1,000 flowers and
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 they were like, "What?
and
1,000 wildflowers." My note
just in case you didn't know, Robin and I are florists, and 1,000 wildflowers is
yep.
not very
My my note literally says 1,000 wildflowers is not that many
no.
in florist. Like, that would be what, 3
Yeah,
boxes of
we
something?
regularly get like hundreds of flowers, a box of 100 carnations, a box of 100 daisies. A box of 100 daisies is like
Right, well,
nothing. And poor
right.
Ashley Poston
So,
thinks
you
it's
get
going to be
yourself some
thousands
days
and thousands and thousands of dollars. It's not.
right, and that did throw me. I was like, "Well, this book is so well done in so many other ways, but that one little detail, which would
Anyone
not
else.
bother, like, 90% of the population," but I was
But
like,
because so her
that's"
father gives
and
them
then
like a list of things he wants for the funeral, and 1,000 wildflowers is the thing. But there's like also a whole list of things, but she's really this becomes the hiccup that she can't get 1,000 wildflowers. And I am like,
right, that is not a hiccup.
I was like,
That
this is
is,
not as hard as it
uh,
seems, my friend. I mean, technically, this is like
no, no.
this is some mums. This is some daisies. This is a box of chamomile.
It's some chamomile right, like,
If
ta-da,
you had
some
said
nigella.
10,000, I would have been like, okay, that is an investment. It's not impossible, but it is
Yep,
an investment. 1,000, nope.
right, right, right. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, but
No.
this is the thing that no one
Yeah,
but
that
us
did
cares
throw me
about.
off. Right. And maybe like
Yeah,
one
yeah,
or
yeah,
two people
yeah,
that
yeah.
we know. Oh my goodness. Sorry. The kitten is trying to come
Oh,
over the
yeah.
top
I
of my
mean,
computer.
how dare you do anything in
Why
this
not?
life without no without me?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed. I thought the family dynamics were really lovely in this, speaking of her dad and his funeral, and like the requests that he made really felt in keeping with the character as he was written, even though he wasn't on the page more than like 4 or 5 pages total. I really felt
Yeah,
like
it's
I
really
knew
lovely how
him.
you come to know her father through his children, through getting to know how they deal with his
Yeah,
death and how and what he wanted for his funeral. It's really interesting.
right.
And really well done. I really did enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, I unreservedly loved this book. The only thing I didn't that threw me
And
off was the flower thing.
that is a silly
Um,
little
it is right. That is a professional problem that literally
yeah.
no one else would have. Maybe not no one, but
Yeah.
the numbers are small. Um, I loved the family. I loved how it all
Yeah.
resolved in the end. I thought that was the whole way through. So with a lot of ghost romances, you're always worried about how it's going to resolve. That's part of the tension. Like that, those are the stakes, right? In acting, they talk. I went to acting school, and you talk a lot about what are the stakes for your character and how do you make those stakes bigger? Because that's the thing that's the most interesting. Well, being dead is like the biggest stake, biggest impediment to a love story. And one of the reasons that we enjoy reading these is that that is always somehow resolved
You know what I just
magically
realized? It's
or
almost like the opposite of Fated Mates. Struggle
yes,
with Fated Mates because it feels like it takes I know people love it and I understand why people love it. It is my favorite podcast as well. But uh
right.
but but it for me it takes away some agency and I don't I feel like sometimes fated mates books don't allow for the falling in love. It's insta love, and they don't really understand why. And so then you don't there's like a stuff. I don't Doesn't really matter why, because we're not talking about fated mates. But I think the reason that I love ghost romance is because it's the opposite. Because if you fall in love with a ghost, generally there is a falling in love portion. Like there is something really magical is happening between two people, you know?
Right. And it has to be about, it is constantly about choosing
Right.
that other person because they're dead. And like, if you're still choosing them, that's, that's a love for the
Right.
ages. That's,
Right.
or they're dead and they continue to choose you where there is no hope
Yeah.
of being
Yeah.
together. Right. Like, but because it's a romance, it is always resolved in some way. And this one sort of surprised me the way that it was resolved. Um, on a second read, I noticed more and more details about him changing. Like she kept saying ghosts for static, but his hair would be floppy one time that she would see him, and then his sleeves would be rolled up. But like, how can you do that if
Right.
ghosts are unchanging? Um, so I didn't pick up entirely on those. I mean, I saw them in the text, obviously, but it didn't mean as much. But now that I
Yeah.
know the ending, it was more meaningful and more sort of delightful to be like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
that, oh, yeah,
Back to what you were saying about family. I
yes,
also really enjoyed the family dynamics. It was like, I do not doubt that I don't know that Ashley Poston has siblings, but it sure does sound like it.
it sure feels like it.
The way that small misunderstandings can inform entire, like, behavioral patterns in a family. Just we people complain about the miscommunication trope and how they don't like it and it's overused. And on some level, I understand what they're saying. But it happens with all of us. Like, someone fully misunderstands your motives or your actions, and then they react to you accordingly, and it can snowball for years, and it often does between siblings.
Because sibling relationships are, in my experience, the most complex relationships that we deal with as people, our parents and our siblings, because there is so much shared
And not
history.
at the same time.
And exactly. You know each other better than anybody else, right? But at the same time, you are not sharing the exact experience in life. And like my sister and I, she is 5 years younger than I am, and she remembers things very differently in some cases than I do, had a very different experience about things, and in some cases doesn't remember things
Right.
at all
So that's gonna
that were going on.
completely inform, your entire relationship. Same with me and my brother. Different reasons, and we won't get into that, but it's
That's
I
a different
really yeah, that is a
podcast.
different podcast. Um, Let us know if you're interested in that. I'll get tissues. Um, um, yeah, so it's just I felt that was incredibly well done. I loved the small town of it all. That was also really well done without bogging you down with like 40 billion extra small town characters. Um, that was very cool. And felt like real to life. Um,
Right, the cast of characters was very fully fleshed out, like, I feel like I know them as well. The dog as mayor
sure.
is the best thing
Yep.
about the town. So yeah, I feel like I know the people, and they had enough purpose in the plot, um, to keep moving it along rather than bogging it down with, look at this small town quirky,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
can
yeah.
happen.
Which is actually spoken to in the book now that I think about it, because Florence's ex-boyfriend actually wrote a book based on her life, like stole her life, and is publishing a book.
Yep.
He's a big
He's a
dick. We don't, and
dick.
not in a good way. Like real piece of crap.
No. No.
Don't like that guy. Um, and he basically, like, she confides in him her history, and he basically, like, sensationalizes that that word. Um, I was like,
Slices? You're welcome.
mm, there's more word there, but I can't find it. Um, anyway, um, and, in doing that, really cheapens the small town, experience. Small towns are both, like, very,
Right.
very intimate and also very, private. They are somehow both, and they are not, Gilmore Girls, you know? They are, and they are not, and because a lot of the, like, Mayberry and Gilmore Girl, like, Stars Hollow, a lot of those, like, fictionalized small towns, touch on the on some of the aspects of it, but not all of it. Not in a real way. Um,
Right.
and I think she did a really good job of like, personifying what it feels like to go home back home to a small town. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Agreed. I mean, I did not grow up in a small town, but my parents do live in
And
one now.
I didn't grow up
Pretty
in one because
quaint.
we grew up next to each other-ish. But I did live
Right.
on Tybee Island for 10 years, which is a literally 3-mile island. It is a weird combination of a small town and a tourist trap. So, like,
Like
Mayberry.
Margaritaville meets,
Yeah. So, like,
yeah.
so
Yep.
the fact that you do know the innkeeper and you do know the dog on the corner who is mayor, like, you do know all of these people, but also there's a private life to each of those people that you don't know. Um, and that I feel
Right.
like was really well, like, ex explored in this book, and I really
Right. I also think the small town dynamics of why she left were really interesting and feel very true to life. So Florence can see ghosts, and when she was 13, she helped a ghost boy that was in her class solve his own murder. And she was young and sort of told the story got out. It was in the newspaper, and people were not receptive to that. There was a lot of bullying, there was a lot of shunning, and it didn't help that she, was the weird kid that lived in the
right.
funeral home sort of thing. And a lot of small towns really value um
Yeah.
homogeny, and being outside of that is it like threatens the fiber of the town somehow, not in actuality but in what people think. It is somehow threatening to homogenous societies to have anything different introduced. um and I thought that was a really clever way of, because a lot of times these small town things are like, oh, I left because my boyfriend, my ex-boyfriend, I just couldn't look at him anymore, or I set fire to the
So
bakery,
there's something really interesting in the same way that we talked about siblings and how a misunderstanding can, like, inform your relationship for the next 30 years. The same thing can happen with your relationship within a small town. If you want to grow and be something different in a small town, it is very difficult. It is very difficult to be the daughter of the mortician and ever be anything other than the daughter of the mortician.
other.
It is very hard if a whole
Yep.
small town
Mhm.
sees you as the weird girl that saw dead people or lied about seeing dead people, or
Seeing dead
even
people.
worse, had something to do with the murder. Like, if the entire town sees you that way from the time you're 13 to the time you're 18 or 19, you can't see how you can ever be anything but that person unless you leave, which is what she did. Um,
Right. She runs away to New York, never comes home. I think
yeah.
10 years
And
she
sometimes
spent
those whole, like,
away.
I moved away to New York and now I'm back in my small town books, like, you don't necessarily know why the reason for leaving the small town is just, "This town was too small for me." Like, I
Right.
and
Right.
I didn't that wasn't the case here. It was that this town saw her in one way, she would never be anything other than that unless she left.
And it wasn't like the way they were seeing her was something
Right,
positive for them. It was all very traumatic
right.
for her. Um, Obviously her family wanted her to come back, but and that's part of the tension is that she would not come back. They had to go to her for holidays and I understand how that
Yeah,
can be really frustrating. And she even acknowledges that later, like later on in the book, that she didn't realize how it was affecting other people, like how her behavior
yeah,
was affecting other people.
yeah.
Um I, it obviously this is a romance and the romance was actually really well done. Like I really, really enjoyed Ben Andor, who in my head also just looks like Cassian
Mm,
Andor. There's no sorry, now he is Diego Luna,
I
but
mean,
taller.
oh, no.
Can't help it. I don't make the
Oh,
rules.
no.
I know. Oh, terrible. Oh, do know that Ashley Poston has written fantasy sci-fi prior to writing romance. So I cannot think that with a name like Andor that she didn't
Yeah.
intend
I
that.
she's also, I think, admitted to a decent amount of fan fiction writing, so that will be fun to,
Yeah.
find.
Let's dig that up.
Um, yeah, it so fun story, our niece is 18 and, came to stay with us a couple of months ago, and, this book was on our shelf, and she picked it up and started reading it because she was staying the night and needed something to read. And she loved it. Now, plot twist, she has sort of never really loved romance.
Yep.
So the two of us and her mother all read romance. Her mother writes romance. We will drop that link. But she has sort of like, you know, stayed away. So when I asked her, she was like, "Oh my God, it was so good. It was so happy." And I was like, Yeah, Brianna." And she was like, "No, really,
Yes.
no, really. It was so sweet and it ended so happy." And I was like, Yeah, this is, have
Yeah,
I
that is
failed?
the point
Have I
of
failed in
romance.
explaining the number one belief and tenet of romance is that there is a happily ever after? And she was like, "Well, yeah, I guess, but I mean, like, I was just thinking like Jane Eyre." And I was like,
Mm, that is
"Would the-
not a
there's
romance.
a difference in a
Um
like a romantic, you know,
Well, right. So romantic literature is coming out of, the early to mid 19th century in the British
right.
Isles primarily. That is not
Right, they're very
romance.
different. So, I was delighted by her, like, I just she didn't necessarily wanna read
Oh,
sad things, and I am with her on that. So
I also don't want to read sad things.
so that's fun, and now we get to see if we can't get her to read more, not sad things. But it's very funny because I did the same thing to this book. I stopped reading it because I thought it was gonna be sad.
It's not sad though. This is one like I flew through this book both times. Obviously the second time aided by the fact that I had already read it. But I basically read it in a day this second time. Um, Again, I was just going to sort of refresh my memory, but I stayed up till 2 o'clock
Yeah.
reading and like I don't do that for every book. I'm old. I can't do that for every
I
book.
do. I do. But that's fine.
When when I was 16, I did it a lot, but now I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm tired." Um, but and I have read all but one, I think, of her other books, and it's not really a series, but they're all sort of
Yeah.
magical books. There's one about a magical musical town. There's one about time travel, which oh my gosh, I hope we read. I think that one's
Okay.
my
I do
favorite
own that one.
of
So,
this one. Yes, that one's called the 7-Year Slip, I think. And then there's a new one that I haven't read, but I have loved everything I've read of her, so I think I'm gonna have to just try her sci-fi fantasy as well, because that is my other great love.
yeah.
Um, I like the way she writes, I like her prose. In this book, I really enjoyed all of the callbacks to other authors. Like, I think she name drops Nora Roberts, Christina Lauren, Sarah
Casey
McLean.
McQuiston, and others that I can't think of. Um,
But
it's like
it's like a
it's a bit
long
in the book
list.
that, like, her family knows she's a ghostwriter, and it's a bit that, like, her brother in particular just, like, tries to figure out who she's ghostwriting.
Keeps trying to guess who
Yeah,
she's
and
ghostwriting
it's
for. Right.
great. She's like, "Christina Lauren," and she's like, "Christina and Lauren write their own books."
Write their own books. Yeah, it really was a love letter
It
to romance.
really
This
was.
whole the whole book.
Um, because, for so also Florence wrote her own romance, and it didn't do super well. So she had written that, and then she started ghostwriting. And, so there's this, like, feeling of she couldn't succeed at the thing for herself. She could only do it for someone else, and now she can't finish the last book in that series, so, like, she's not good at her life's work. She's a failure. This relationship that she had, with the ex-boyfriend that
She thought was just this beautiful, perfect, brownstone in New York,
Nora Ephron.
2 writer people. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And that sort of dashed her whole hopes about romance. And the beautiful thing about Ben Andor is that he is a romance loving, like the most romantic
Yeah,
kind
you
of man.
don't find that out until, like, a little further in the book. Like, you're like, "Why is this dude a romance editor?" But you
Right.
find it out as you learn more about him as a person, and it is like he gets the assignment. He reads them, he loves them, and, it it's actually, said at some point. Since the dog is messing with something, please excuse me.
Yeah. I've got a
We've
dog
got
back here
we've got
eating a
2
paper
dogs in this
plate.
house.
So sorry, people. 2 dogs and
Yep.
5 cats. So
So, it's a whole host of characters around here too. Um, so yeah, like,
correct.
he loves it in the same way, and has been forever changed by it too, like, the same way that I feel like both of us are forever changed. Well, all of us, we are forever changed by the books that we read, which is why reading is important. It's like statistically known that reading fiction, like, develops your empathy centers. Which is why they are
Yes,
banning books.
correct. That's why all authoritarians ban books. It's not just the knowledge, it's the empathy and the critical thinking skills and a lot of other things. But that's a
Yep,
different
but,
podcast.
look into Authors Against Book Bans and fight them in your local communities
Correct.
and all of that. I imagine if you're listening to this podcast, you're already on that train, but here we are.
But just in case it's the first time
This
you're
is an
hearing about
anti-book
this.
ban place. We don't believe in that.
Nope.
Um,
Nope. Did no one read
I
Fahrenheit
mean, I didn't,
451?
but I don't think it had a happily ever
But
after,
other people did.
which
No.
is why I didn't read it.
No.
But I did read quite a lot of
Right.
romance, and my empathy centers are robust.
Correct. Yes, excellent. Good job.
So yeah, I think him as a romantic lead was really one of the more thoughtful and interesting romantic leads I've read in a while. Um I really
Agreed.
enjoyed that, getting to know him because I can't I'm not great at like third person, first person. I'm not great at recognizing that, but I feel like you are definitely in her head the whole time, right?
I think it's hold on. Must open the book because I didn't pay
I
any
don't
attention to
usually,
it.
but I know that that's very important to some people.
Yes, it is in
Yeah.
first person, which typically I hate. First person narration is so hard to get right. And it says a lot that I didn't
Didn't
even
even clock it.
notice that it was first person until I just went back to look and it says, I let
Yeah,
out a
and I
squeak.
don't think at any point it does any head hopping. I don't think we're in Ben's head at all.
Mm, I don't
No, I
think
don't think so,
so.
because that would have really fucked with the whole ghost reveal at the end.
Ghost? Right. Yeah. And you
I
need
mean, you're
that
not
reveal.
sure that
Like,
Ben is in his own head, honestly.
well, he
Right,
kind of isn't
right,
because he's
right,
not in
right.
his body.
You know what I mean?
I do
Yeah,
figuratively.
yeah.
Um, sorry, again, there was a cat. I'm very distracted. I'm trying to keep computers on.
Alright. So,
Um,
I think that we should start maybe giving these like a ghost rating.
yes, I like happy
Like, was this
ghosts.
a 4 out of 5? Was this a 5 out of 5 booze?
Yes, booze. That's how we're gonna rate things from now on. For me, this was a 5 out of 5 booze.
I believe for me, this was also a
I
5 out of 5 booze. I cried, but in, like, just my eyes were leaking kind of way,
Yep.
multiple times because I was moved um, by everyone. The empathy centers, those were active.
They're firing.
So I really
um,
enjoyed it, stayed up till 3 in the morning reading it. Really enjoyed the world, the relationships, not just the romantic, but the family and the town. Yeah, definitely a 5 out of 5
yeah,
booze for
agreed.
me.
Out of 5 booze for both of us. Yeah, it's one of the I've devoured a lot of romance novels. Like in my I know, weird, right? In my heyday, I would just read a book a day. It didn't really matter what it was. Usually historical. I do still love historical, but I am moving more into this sort of modern. Um, but man, as a teenager, I would blow through multiple books a week, right? But none of them well, most of them didn't leave huge impressions. I didn't want to go back and read most of them again. But this feels like a book that is not just a romance, if that makes sense. Like it feels deeper than a lot of other romance, not in a bad way. Like obviously I love romance, but this feels like it has something more and beautiful to say than just a happily ever after.
Yeah.
It has that, but it has
I think as we start getting into some of the more modern, ghost romances, I think especially if they are post 2020, I think we're gonna see some really interesting. Like, they're gonna be 2020 really was a real number for all of us, and, we dealt with so much death. It's really interesting that we have dealt that a lot of romance is dealing with grief in different ways. Um, you're
yes,
seeing it more and more in different ways. I do think that the, like, rise in dark romance is a it is in response to dark days.
agreed. And figuring out how to deal with that in a safe place rather than the reality of you can track this in horror tropes
Yeah.
too. Um Pretty easily. So it's interesting to look at it in romance because there's been a fair number of research about how horror films and horror tropes reflect what is going on societally. And I think this rise in dark romance also reflects what is happening societally, to embrace that darkness, but in a safe space that you can walk away
Yeah.
from if you need to. Be really interesting to dive more into that at some point. If you are an anthropologist or anybody that's studying that, will you reach out to me? Because I just want to talk to you about those things. I am a big nerd and would just like to talk to you about those
Yeah.
things. But yeah, you're right. I think that it's going to be really interesting to look at ghost romances from, and honestly, even pre 9/11.
Mhm.
Like, I think there will be some differences between the pre 9/11 ghost books, post 9/11 ghost books, and then
It is very
post COVID
interesting that the
ghost books.
collection of books that sort of started this podcast, started in '96 and stopped the last book, I think, is 2001.
Yep.
But
Wonder what
what
happened
did
then.
happen?
I don't know. I definitely wasn't
No.
traumatized. um yeah, and I think it's really interesting to look at what we consume as a society and why we like the things that we like, trend
Yes.
wise. Um, I don't know that everybody signed up for that sort of discussion, but it is going to happen. So buckle up, because I don't think you can have a full bodied discussion about romance without talking about the society in which it is written in.
Yes. I mean, that is why it is so important to listen, to read, like, varied voices in romance so that you aren't, um,
Exactly.
that you aren't experiencing only one reality, the one that you've chosen, because there are many other realities around us. Um,
Correct.
Speaking of that, uh, I thought it might be kind of fun, and I did not tell you this before.
A surprise.
I thought it might be kind of fun, to talk about, some of the things that we are consuming, um, and enjoying.
Ooh, other than
Yeah, whether
romance?
it's romance, is it a TV show? For you, it's probably a K-drama.
It
Is
is.
it a music, or, any of those things?
Right. When things get really stressful, which my personal life has been fine, but the world has felt very stressful, I consume I know, weird. Although last night
You
was good.
guys,
This is a much better November the 5th than last year.
big fan, big fan.
Yeah. Big fan of yesterday's election results. So when things feel very stressful, I either read, like I was talking about earlier, I literally finish a book and pick up another one. Like in January, I think I read 35 books just to sort of help me get through. And recently I have been binging K-dramas. Many of them are like romance in television form. But the one I'm watching right now that I am loving, it's airing weekly. It's called Typhoon Family. And it is about a company called Typhoon Trading in Seoul in 1997, I think. Apparently, Korea had a huge economic crisis, and the IMF had to loan them money and bail them out. And like, it was a huge deal. Obviously, I am not Korean and do not know anything about it. Um, but this show is set during then, and the main character is the most charming. Like, he's resilient and charming and lovely, and he's falling in love with this girl, and it is just, it's not even really like, it's not a romance drama. It has romance in it, but that is not the point. Um and still listening to Taylor Swift and K-pop Demon Hunters. What did I download the other day that I was like, "Ooh, this is great." You say yours now, and I'll try to remember what the heck it was I was listening to.
I I have been struggling with reading, for about 2 years now. So one of the things I'm loving about having this podcast is it is, a little extra dopamine to get me to the end of a book, to get me to pick up a book, to get me to really try and put down.
And
and
engage
engage
with
with
a
a book.
book.
Think about not just consume it, but, like, think about it. Because I do think that I'd gotten into a place where I was just like romance novels had become my potato chips, which I really love potato chips, but I can down a bag, forget I've had the bag, and, like, want to go for another bag. Um, I don't, but I could. And romance
Right.
novels have historically have been the same for me. That all to say that I've really been enjoying being able to engage with them in this, but I'm still not reading as much as I used to. So, but I have been loving this season of Great British Bake Off. I've really been
Always.
this one is really in particular for whatever reason I've really been enjoying. But also the new Florence and the Machine album just came out and it is really um really I'm still like digest it's an album you need to digest. Like it's an album that you need like a four-course meal. Like you need to like put it on and really examine it and really listen to it. And it has some strong like romantic era horror vibes. Lots of organ, lots of like not chanting, but like yeah, it's got some real vibes are happening in that. Um
Right, right.
I saw a thread, someone, I don't know who it was, but was like, "This album has the potential to do for, like, fundamental like, young women raised in fundamental Christian households to do what Tori Amos did for me in the '90s." And I was like,
Woo!
"Interest."
Oh, that's a big
Right?
claim.
So, like, I'm really enjoying, listening to that, and, excited to, like, sort of explore it a little bit more as I listen.
Mhm.
Um
I wanna listen to that, that's on my list. The thing I forgot was, I went back and listened and read the lyrics. I've listened to this album before, but Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 and Odd Jobs, I have been a Dolly fan since, I saw her in 9 to 5
Yes.
when I was a literal child. I was like, "Who is this fabulous woman?" But that album she joined some social media recently, and it's crazy to me that every time Dolly does something, people are like, "Wait a minute, Dolly's political?" And like, she's not tweeting about it. She's not, but like, go listen to that album. Go listen to 9 to 5 and Odd Jobs.
You do not grow up in Sevierville, Tennessee, um, who, like, with I don't even remember how many brothers and sisters,
Oh my God, like
like a
10
bajillion
in a two-room
brothers and
cabin.
sisters in a two-room cabin directly, like, affected by the Tennessee Valley Authority and, like, walk away not I mean, you do walk away not knowing your history because that's where how we've gotten where we are today, but, like,
Right.
Dolly has yes, Dolly is
I mean, she's got it. She covered a song on this album. This is a 1980 album, I would like to point out. She covered a song, I think it was Merle Haggard that originally did it. It's called Deportee, and it's about how poorly migrant and immigrant workers have been treated. Like, this is a 1980 album covering like a song from 1948.
yeah, that's you know,
Um,
I really enjoy here's another thing that I enjoy, I really, the 3rd is it the 3rd season? I don't know, the new season of The Diplomat with Carrie Russell and, um, other people, and
Ross Poldark.
yes. It has, it's got the guy from Poldark in it, and he is, very, very
Mhm.
nice. But also it has, just a great cast, and it has a female president, which is just
Oh, my
right.
heart.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It feels a little bit like it's sprinkled with some West Wing reliving because it's got what's her face in. She is the president. Um, and, it's just fantastic, but, like, when you, just like the, West Wing, yeah, it's got Allison Janney and, Rufus Sewell, um and Bradley Whitford is in it. Bradley Whitford plays the president's husband. And so there's like this like weird like West Wing kind of nod, but you realize like we are just the same things that were happening in the West Wing are fucking happening now. It's all the same. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
I really enjoyed that. I flew through that. I did binge that one and flew through it and had a great time, and I wish there was more. It wasn't a perfect season, but I had a good time.
I've not watched it. I tend not to like dramas, quote unquote. Um, but you've recommended it several times, so maybe I will
I don't know if you'll
give it a
love it, but
go.
I had a good time.
That is all that
Yeah.
counts, actually.
A thing that we did not discuss is what we're gonna read next.
Oh, did we personally discuss
We did
that?
not.
Oh, great. We're so well
We're good at
prepared.
this. So, I could just reach up and pick one.
Yes, I think you should just reach up and pick one from the haunted shelf.
Hold on. Oh, yeah. Yep, this one. This is
In the midnight hour? Wow, that cover. Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So, we're gonna read In the Midnight Hour by Kimberly Randall.
What's it
That's a
about?
great question.
It's about a ghost, I
A
imagine.
famed lover throughout New Orleans, Valentine Tremaine, was murdered in was murdered in his bed in 1848 by a woman's protective father, outraged at Valentine's amorous adventures. For more than 100 years, Valentine wondered about the legacy he might have left behind, and he won't cross over until he learns the truth. But Veronica's mortal innocence and sweetness, as well as her beauty, stirs his blood like no other woman ever has. And as they delve into history to find the answers to his past, Valentine finds himself wishing for the impossible, a future with Veronica.
Valentine and Veronica?
Oh man,
They're monogrammed owls.
1999 by Kimberly Randell. So that'll be fun.
Okay. Valentine and Veronica. Well, I'm really glad we don't have to deal with women in 1840s clothes.
I know
That
that for
I
sure.
would have had to stop reading the book.
A spirit schooled in the ways of seduction will soon learn a lesson in love.
Oh
Next
boy.
time,
Well, that is going to
next
be a
next
ride.
time on Haunted Hearts.
Thank you, Delilah. Okay, well, we will be reading that and we will keep you posted on how we feel about it. And we will see you next time.
Yep. See you next time. And I will stop this recording at any moment now when my mouse starts working. There you go.
Oh boy.